Hello, everyone. It's Natalie. Welcome to this video. And today we're going to talk about how our own childhood wounds shape our own parenting journey. And to start with childhood wounds, and I'm going to give you an explanation in a moment, but as humans, we all have experienced some form of wounding while growing up. And it's not because our parents didn't love us or didn't care for us all the time. It's childhood wounding happens for various reasons. So know that despite our parents loving us, there can be childhood wounds that happens along the way. And as humans, we all have experienced it. And today I want to bring this to your attention because those wounds, if they haven't been healed, will play a role in our parenting journey. So welcome, everyone. It's Natalie. And if you're in my Facebook community, I'm very grateful that you're here in the community and contributing to become a better parent, which is then of benefit to you as a parent, but also to your children and the next generations. And if you're not a member of my group, check it out. It's called Raising Happy Kids with Calm Parenting Solutions. And if you want to share that with your friends, feel free to do so. So I'm a parent myself of 3 boys, and I'm on this path to help other parents become aware of what is really going on with us when we get triggered, when we're not able to manage our emotions. And talking about childhood wounds has a great effect in the way we are able to regulate emotions. So if you want to find more about me and the work that I do, feel free to join my Facebook group or reach out to me. Otherwise, I'm going to delve right into what is a childhood wound. Childhood wounds refer to emotional or physiological wounds resulting from early experiences with one parent or more than one parent or caregivers. And it will significantly affect the parent that we become, because these wounds are often really rooted in our own childhood experiences that then shape who we become. It shapes our beliefs, our interpretation of what's happening with different kind of situations, and our perception of ourselves, of others, and of the world we live in. So the first way it can affect us if we have childhood wound is in our own attachment style. If we experience, for instance, inconsistent or insecure attachment with a caregiver, we will most likely then struggle to form secure attachment with our own children. For example, if we had an absent parent for whatever reason, maybe a parent who is working a lot, traveling a lot, parents who are separated and we didn't spend a lot of time with one parent versus the other, we may not know what it feels like to have secure attachment with our own child because we didn't experience it ourselves. And it may be overwhelming to suddenly, when we have a newborn or we become a parent for the first time, to be able to have a close attachment with our child, because if we didn't experience it, we don't know what it's like. And so it can be very difficult. It will maybe difficult to provide emotional support and creating then a sense of safety with our own child. Dr. Wayne Dyer, who has passed away, mentioned in one of his quotes that we can't give what we don't have. So if we didn't have secure attachment, then if we didn't learn it later on, then we also most likely can't give it to our children. A second way is how childhood wounds affect us as a parent is the repetition of patterns, because individuals with childhood wounds may unconsciously repeat the same parenting pattern they experienced as a child, and therefore perpetuate that cycle of dysfunction and emotional wounds through generation, because it's passed down from one generation to another. For instance, if we were criticized a lot as a child and we were not validated for what we did right, we may unconsciously, as a parent, repeat that same pattern. We may criticize because that comes naturally to us, because this is what we've experienced, and we may find it harder to validate our child when they're doing something good. It's just because we didn't get into that habit. A third way is about expectations and perfectionism. Emotional wounds can lead to unrealistic expectations of oneself as a parent. Yeah, we may feel the need to be perfect to compensate perhaps for perceived parental inadequacies. If we don't feel like we're enough, as a parent, we may also think that we're not enough or we're not a good enough parent. And that can lead to high level of stress and pressure in our own parenting role. I know I've felt that at one point, that I'm not sure if I'm a good parent. And having those doubts in the background can really then affect our own ability to show up as the kind of parent we want to be towards our children. So, for instance, if we grew up with a sense that nothing we did was enough for our own parent or caregiver to be happy, we often then develop high expectations of ourselves and for our children. We tend to have that because we didn't know or we didn't feel like whatever we did was enough. So we continue to work harder and harder and harder with the hope that maybe then our parent will validate our ability to do something, or our just validating who we are, for instance. Another way is overcompensation. Some parents who've had a mother or father wounds may overcompensate by being overprotective or overindulgent parents, because we know what that felt like when we were little. So then we say to ourselves, okay, with my child, I'm not going to do the same thing with my child. I'm not going to give them that same experience that I had, because I know how hurtful and painful that was for me. So then we may try to give our child everything we felt we lacked, which can lead to an imbalance or inconsistent parenting, and not allowing our child also to learn and to apply themselves, which is part of their growth, and learning to be independent, learning to apply their willpower, for instance. So how this may show up is in our lack of creating and setting boundaries, which lead then to the next point and next way that childhood wounds can affect the kind of parent we become, is that we have difficulty setting boundaries. So parents with childhood wounds may struggle with setting healthy boundaries for their children. We might alternate between being overly permissive and overly strict, finding it challenging to strike a balance. So if you find that is the case for you, then perhaps there are some dynamics that went on as a child that created some wounding that you need to look at. The next way is emotional regulation, which I mentioned earlier on. Childhood wounds often affect our emotional regulation, making it difficult for us to manage our own emotions as parents. And this can lead to explosive emotional reactivity or the opposite, just avoidance when triggered, which then negatively will impact the parent and child relationship, the relationship we have with our children. Right? So if we're not able to regulate, then we're not going to be able to help our child regulate as well. And when we can't regulate and we react in a certain way, this often causes our child to think that they are responsible for our emotions, that they've caused it. And if you pause and reflect on that, when you were growing up, if your parent got angry because you didn't do something the way they wanted it to be done, what did she make that mean about yourself? Did you blame your parent or did you blame yourself for not being able to meet the expectations, for instance? And so this is how, if we're not learning to manage our own triggers and emotions, then we react in a certain way and we keep that cycle of wounding to our children. So it is very, very important that if we know we've had some wounding and that was our experience as a child of not being able, for instance, to express our emotions or being made wrong for expressing certain emotions, and knowing that it was really painful for us when we couldn't express and we didn't have a parent who was attuning to how we were feeling and also helping us with our emotions, then we know that there was some wounding there. And it's important then for us to learn how to heal those wounds, and so we can be able to be there for our children and help them with their own emotions. So the next one is avoidance or neglect. When we get triggered, we can usually react in two different ways. We may become explosive, but also we can emotionally detach from them. And this is a way for our nervous system to protect ourselves from further wounding, further emotional wounds. For example, when a child is having a tantrum, if your child is having a tantrum, it can bring up certain emotions in you as a parent, like anger or shame, if you're, for instance, in public. And if the parent has not addressed the anger and shame that comes up for them and why it's coming up for them, then often we can see a parent want to detach and just walk away instead of staying present with the child. It's okay to walk away for a few minutes to recompose ourselves, but if we send them to their room and say, I can't deal with you right now. When you stop crying, then I can be with you. Or we just walk away and we leave them by themselves, then this is not healthy for a child, because we're detaching in the moment when they most need ourselves, when they are feeling strong emotions themselves. So you can see how this can play into that dynamic of, if we're not able to manage our emotions and be with our own, then most likely we can't be with their emotions. The next one will be in role modeling. Parents often serve as the primary models for their children. Yeah. Our children watch everything we're doing. We are the ones who are in the environment the most. So they're going to see what we're doing. They see how we respond, how we act, how we react, and they learn from that. Children learn from us, right? That's why they copy behaviors, they copy habits, they copy language. So how we model to them is important. So if we had a mother or father that, there was wounds there with a mom or dad, we may unknowingly model unhealthy behaviors or communication patterns. If we had that with a parent ourselves, we may continue to model that because that's what was modeled to us in the first place, and we've learned it. And if we didn't do the work to unlearn and find another way to practice a different habit, for instance, so if we had a parent who yelled at us, if we didn't take the time to understand what did that do for us, and despite the fact that we don't want to yell at our kids anymore, we may still do it despite our intention of not doing it. This was my experience, and with a lot of clients I've worked with, they come to me and they say, Natalie, this is not something I want to do, but I find myself repeating the same habits that I didn't want to. And that's not because the parent is not willing or didn't try. It's because something that was learned, and it's something that is happening very unconsciously. So it requires some work, which doesn't have to take a long time to disintegrate that habit so we don't repeat it. But it does require that we do that inner work in order to be able to do it, in order to be able to change that habit, to change the belief, the perceptions, the interpretations that we had, in order to be able in a moment of trigger to not yell and to be aware of what is arising in us. So we don't want to perpetuate that cycle of emotional wounds to our children. And so it is, which lead to the last point, that self-reflecting parenting. On a positive note, we can, if we've experienced emotional wounds, we can use those experiences as an opportunity for self-reflection and for personal growth. It is possible. I can attest to that because I've taken that journey. I was the parent who used to yell, who used to get really upset, really angry when my child wasn't meeting my expectations, for instance, and in various situations. And I had to look at my own emotional wounds that I experienced as a child. And when I was able to understand what was happening in me in a moment of trigger and where it was taking me, I was then able to shift that. And so you can do it as well. I've helped many parents do the same. And not that you're not going to get triggered, you will get triggered. But in a moment of trigger, you can be more aware, you can read the signs, and you can choose in that moment not to yell, not to punish, not to disconnect with your child, but instead being able to take care of yourself for a moment so you can stay present with your child and know that a lot of times our children are experiencing a lot of emotions themselves when they act out, when they're having a tantrum, when they're engaging in those behaviors that are triggering to us. It's because that's when they need the most help. And I've done other videos about why they engage in those behaviors. It's because they need our attention, they need our help. And so when they need our help, they need our presence. And if we can't be present with them because there's things going on with us, then we are not going to be able to help them. And then we get more frustrated and the cycle keeps going and going and going. So it's important then for us as parents who have experienced childhood wounds to know that we can become nurturing. We can become the supportive parents with self-awareness, with help. There is help out there. I'm not asking you to come to me. If you want to come to me, it would be a pleasure for me to help you because I've been there and I've helped other parents. I've helped myself heal with emotional wounds. But there are other people out there who can also help you. So the help is there for you to take. So you don't have to do it alone either. And I don't recommend that you do it alone. I didn't do it alone. So know that I'm here for you. If you want my support, you want my presence, you want my guidance to break this cycle of emotional wounds, you can do it, and it won't take a long period of time. That I can tell you. It will take you some time, but it's not going to be years and years and years to be able to show up as the kind of parent that you want to show up. So you can do it. You can raise your child with calm, confidence, connection, and compassion to develop a loving, nurturing, caring, and solid relationship with them. It is possible to you even if you've experienced emotional wounds in your own childhood. And a lot of time, if we don't address those emotional wounds, they are going to perpetuate. You're going to see a lot of that also happening in the dynamic with you and your child. It is going to affect you as a parent. It is going to affect your relationship with your child as well. But it is not a dead end. You're not helpless and you're not hopeless with that situation. You can do something about it. I know if I've been able to do something about it and other parents have, you can do so as well. And I guarantee you, it's not going to take years. It's not going to take you a fortune. It's not going to be impossible. It's not going to be like, oh, I have to be a certain kind of parent to be able to do that. No, the way you are as a parent, if you have the deepest desire to have a close, loving relationship with your child, and you want to interrupt the cycle, the patterns, the habits that you know are not healthy as a parent in your relationship with your child, then you can do this work. And that's my message to you today. You can do this work. And if you want to do so, feel free to reach out to me. We're getting to the end of 2023. Maybe you want to start the new year on a better path and starts to forge a loving, caring relationship with your child where you don't have to yell, you don't have to nag, you don't have to punish, but you can attune to them, you can direct them, you can support them, you can guide them if that's what you want. Reach out to me, send me a message, and I'll be very happy to tell you more about my program, which is a one-on-one program that I work with parents and that I've seen a high level of success. I wouldn't be here talking about it if it wasn't the case. So reach out to me. I have a special deal for the end of the year, and I'll be happy to share it with you. Thank you for listening. I send you much love and support as a parent, from a parent to a parent. I send you a lot of courage, a lot of love, and a lot of hope. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, evening, or morning.